Hi there. Thanks for joining me again. I appreciate you tuning in. Just wanted to give you an update on my reading week, what I've been reading since we left off, how any of the books that I got from the library, those holds that I talked about, how any of them have turned out. Have I tried any of them? This week, during the week, Monday through Friday, I'm usually just reading at night. Sometimes at lunchtime, I'll read a few pages, especially if I'm near the end of a book. Not the kind of book that I would be reading at night, but just one of the other books that I'm reading. Some of the shorter books, I'll read a couple pages. So I've done a little bit of that. I'm attending it's a 4 or 5 week sewing class on Wednesday evenings in the city, so it's about 25 minutes away just because of rush hour traffic after work. And it's a how to sew with a pattern refresher thing. And so there's only like 6 of us, and it's this beautiful tiny sewing studio, so you've got this massive amount of space to spread out, and I'm learning how to sew from a pattern again. And haven't done a pattern type of sewing since junior high. So, and that's true of a lot of people in the class, but we're all different ages, and we all come from different backgrounds, and we couldn't be a more eclectic group. There are 3 guys in the class. We are young and old and in between. I'm just loving it. So it's just what I was looking for. Okay, I finished the Anita Brookner I was reading. I can always rely on an Anita Brookner or a Barbara Pym as a just wonderful book for me to read at night along with whatever else I'm reading. I'm trying to slowly trickle in Barbara Pym and Anita Brookner. I don't want to read them all at once. This was, I think I've only read one other Anita Brookner, although I feel like I've read more. This was my favorite. I read Hotel de Lac. And Look at Me, I think, was one of her later books. It was written in the early 80s. It's about a single woman. I mean, it's an Anita Brookner book. But in this case, Fanny is a librarian, and she lives a very quiet life in the apartment that she grew up in with her mother. I'm assuming her parents, but I don't remember anything about her dad. There's a housekeeper because her mother had one that still lives there, an old lady now. But she's befriended these 2 goofy, hip people, a couple named Alex and who is Nick and Alex. Alex is the woman. And because they come into the library and they're doing some researching or something, and she just gets adopted by them as a friend, even though she's not really a part of their circle. And the story goes on from there. She meets a guy named James who is a friend of theirs, kind of, and then that storyline develops. But I cannot say any more because the way that the book unfolds when you don't know anything about what's going to happen is the best part of this book. So I can just say that it's very much a Brookner book. It just glides along and unfolds, and it actually becomes more of an interior story and a struggle than Hotel de Lac certainly was. So I love it for that. It became more and more tense. So I highly recommend this one. I don't want to say any more because I don't want to spoil it for anyone. And I am still making my way through Barchester Towers. I am almost halfway through. One of the things that I'm continuing to love about this series is the narrator. The narrator, the way that Trollope has set up this narrator, it's not just someone who's spinning a story. It's someone who we are led to believe by the way that the narrator talks that he's in Barchester. He knows these people. And for whatever reason, he's writing this story or telling this story. And that's what's so cool about the way that he writes. For instance, I've marked a couple spots here where he does this. Early on, this is like chapter 2. So this picks up after the warden. The warden was Mr. Harding's story with his Mr. Harding, the warden, and his daughter. That's the story of the warden. But in chapter 2, he said, the narrator says, "It is hardly necessary that I should here give to the public any lengthened biography of Mr. Harding up to the period of commencement of this tale," meaning I've already told you Mr. Harding's tale and the warden. And then he goes on, he says, "The public cannot have forgotten how ill that sensitive gentleman bore the attack that was made on him in the columns of the Jupiter, with reference to the income which he received as warden of Hiram's Hospital. Nor can it be forgotten that a lawsuit was instituted against him on the matter of that charity by Mr. John Bold, who afterwards married his younger unmarried daughter. Mr. Bold, Eleanor's husband, then we learn dies, and that's a big part of this book, which I'm absolutely loving because Eleanor is now a widow, and that makes her attractive to some people because she has a monthly stipend or income from Mr. Bold's life insurance. What did I want to read here? Did I want to say something about this? Oh, just that the character of Mr. Slope, who we're getting to know in this book at the end of a chapter, he's introducing the person who became bishop, which is the big thing that happens at the beginning of the book. The bishop dies, they have to appoint a new bishop, and it's not the person that everyone thinks it's going to be. Instead of it's Mr. Prouty. And now we're also going to meet this other guy named Mr. Slope. And it says, "Mr. Slope, however, on his first introduction, must not be brought before the public at the tail end of a chapter." We're at the tail end of a chapter. So then the next paragraph, called "The Bishop's Chaplain," is introducing Mr. Slope. I can't even... I could just go on and on about how much I love Anthony Trollope now, and especially this series. So I'm sure I'll just keep going and going. I am still reading, but almost done with, Rent Boy by Gary Indiana. And this book, I am enjoying more and more and more with every page. It's only 100 some pages long, and I'm enjoying all of it. It becomes more complex. This character, whose name is Danny, is it's interesting how this is written, because then you finally figure out, it's not spelled out very clearly, but you finally understand that Danny is writing a letter. That's what this book is. It's different parts of his life and his adventures being a rent boy, a male prostitute, a male gay prostitute. He's writing this to his friend in little snippets. That's why he's describing his adventures. But he's made a friend named Chip, and by a little more than halfway through the story, it takes it's not that it takes a turn, but there's a story that begins with through his friendship with Chip that develops another storyline and another adventure that's really weird and interesting. So that's where I'm at now. I'm not going to say anything about that, because as you learn about it, that's really the kick of the book. And his voice, the way that Gary Indiana writes, I'm just appreciating with literally just with every page. And wouldn't you know, the New York Times has just printed an article it's a, what would I call, a profile of Gary, Indiana. So it's in the New York Times. I'm sure you can find it if you Google it. And in there, he says, I wrote it down here, he says that his favorite book is the 1943 book called Two Serious Ladies by Jane Bowles. When I looked this book up, because I am certainly going to look for it in the library, it's described as a descent into debauchery. So I don't know. If Gary, Indiana, that's his favorite book, then it's got to have some kind of interesting twist to it. So I am well into and halfway through Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. This is a story of a woman in a remote village in Poland. Her name's Janina. I love this character, Janina. It's not clear how old she is, but I'm going to say she's like 65 or something, but she's very beaten up by her work as a bridge construction engineer. This was her career. And then she gets something that she calls an ailment, but it's not described. It has something to do with glucose, but it feels like it's something more than diabetes. It almost feels like it's a bunch of things. And she gets attacks, and it really affects her physically. So she had to switch careers, and now she's a teacher of the at the local school in town, like an elementary school. But it's just seems to me at this point it's part-time. Her job over the winter time is to look in on her neighbors' houses, because most of her neighbors are seasonal because of the very harsh winters up on the mountain or hill where she lives. Really great characters. They all have, she's nicknamed all of them that are wintering up there with her. She believes in mysticism. She is a vegan and is very connected with animals, almost to the point where it's she might be more in tune with animals than she is humans. She can read a horoscope. She can read anyone's horoscope. She does almost everyone's horoscope, even if she doesn't tell them. So interesting. I am hooked on Olga Tokarczuk now, and I want to read her other book, Flights. So this is where I'm at. And I'm not even done with it. So there's much more of the story to go. Everything I've said is just setting up the story. The story itself is about some quirky things that happen in the town. That's all I'm going to say about that. I haven't really dug into Thirst for Salt yet by Madeleine Lucas. I've read, I don't know, maybe 20 pages, and it's interesting. I like a story that takes place in a beach town. It's about a mother and daughter. It's about the daughter looking back on a time when she was 24, and she meets a guy when she was vacationing with her mother in a beach town. This is in Australia. He was 42. They're not together anymore. So I do want to keep going. I just don't know if I can work it in on time. Maybe that could be a book for later on. And another one that I'm not decided on yet, but I keep trying to read a couple pages of so I don't completely forget what I'm reading, is Collected Works. I've probably read like 30 pages, Lydia Sandgren. And this is the story of Martin. He was married to Cecilia. Cecilia has disappeared. It sounds like she's gone away, and they know she's gone away, but why has she gone away? And he now has 2 adult children. So, but I love the writing. That's what's keeping me going. It's detailed, but it is done so well that it doesn't feel monotonous right now. But I'm just like barely into it. So we'll see. And then I also don't know about the Shards by Bret, Easton, Ellis. I do want to dip into this book over the weekend, give it maybe 50 pages or so and see whether it hooks me or not. And of course, I have books on hold for me at the library. The birthday party, I think, is coming. It's not in yet. I think that's on the Booker long list. I'm not going to guess what list these books are on anymore because I've been wrong. I've been so wrong. And Louise Kennedy's Trespasses is in. Jennifer something. It'll come to me. The book Homesick. I think that's on the Women's Prize long list. That's in for me. And a couple others. So we'll see. By the time I'm picking the books up, I usually try to wait till Sunday so that maybe they'll all be in by the time I'm there, or more will be in by the time I'm there. So I would love to know your comments about any of the authors that I'm reading. And I do want to thank everyone that has chosen to subscribe to me. Me being a booktube newbie and just learning my way. So I really appreciate it. And of course, would appreciate any of your comments and feedback about everything that I've talked about. I hope you have a good weekend. Bye.